Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion, the setting of the Pathfinder role-playing game system? Because if you are, then take my hand, your guide here, Tantus Dracovin, as I gate our way, not only to Golarion, but to one of the continents, TNZ, and the nation of Hwanggot. I'm pronouncing it as best I can, Hwanggot. Forgive me if I do mispronounce anything as we go here today. It's not my expertise to pronounce things, and I try to. But please, as we go through the gate, travel to Golarion, travel to Hwanggot, do remember to, of course, tip your guide here with liking, subscribing, and bell, and maybe leave a comment over on the YouTube side of things. Hang on. Anyway, we shift the planes. It's time to gate. Wow, we're back in Golarion. It was another quick journey, but, always a dangerous journey to enter the gate and travel across the universe to this far-off, distant location. But we have to be ready now to explore this place. And honestly speaking, its people are relatively kind and nice and friendly, generally speaking. We're going to be introduced to the people here as well. But they have a sordid history that does shape them in ways. And just keep in mind, they may not use the sharpened sword, but they haven't, just in case. But if you were to dive deeper into this nation, learn more about it, beyond what we're going to be talking about today, where would you look? Well, Dragon Empire's Gazetteer, and of course, TNZ World Guide. Both really great places to find additional information. So here's the flag of Hwanggot. And what is it? It is a smaller nation, known as the Kingdom of Flowers. The Tianhuan people are ancestrally come from this region. And in general, it's considered to be a land of peace, understanding, and diplomacy. But that attitude, that way, was forged through a difficult history that they've gone through. So it isn't necessarily that they don't have the ability to stand up, but now the way that they are, diplomacy first. Their capital is Haesong, and they have a hereditary monarchy with the current queen being Heong Gyeongji. And of course, the Tianhuan people aren't the only people in this nation, but they are the major people. Let's look into that with its history. The history of Hwanggot. It's an interesting one because it is a little bit of a complex history. The main part of it that we know about deals with its time in Imperial Longhua, but it is a nation that was formed actually in the wake of the fall of Imperial Yixing. Before then, basically 13 years after Yixing's collapse, TNZ was still in turmoil. Again, this is much older time. The Tianhuan people decided to take destiny in their own hands, and the founders of this nation studied Yixing, its strengths, weaknesses, cause, and eventual collapse, and from this came with an idea, a new wisdom, and the Tianhuan kingdom formed in 3089 AR. After these initial years of independence, General Cho, one of the great heroes and military leaders, fought to maintain its existence. After his last war, the general played to the heavenly court that it would not let later generations experience war like he and his army had suffered. This plea was answered by the creation of the venerated Dragon Lotus Drum, and Cho's writing influenced Hwanggot to adopt a national pacifism. So it's basically, they went through bloody wars post-Yixing. So Yixing falls, these people who have a culture together in this region decide to create their own nation, kind of look at Yixing, kind of figure it out, and yeah. This is the origin of the nation. The origin of the creation of Hwanggot. So, it maintained its independence for over 1,000 years until it surrendered peacefully in 4304 to Imperial Longhua and basically became a part of their group. And so for 300 years, they're part of the Imperial Longhua. Now, it is important to note that this was a bloodless conquest. They went for diplomacy as best they can, and when diplomacy failed, rather than go to war, they surrendered. And this bloodless conquest made a lot of people see Hwanggot as a nation of fools and cowards. They sold their soul for hallopies. But, and there are some Tianhuans who left the nation to fight in rebel armies out of protest. But, here's the thing. The nation was very well, mostly untouched from under the shadow of Imperial Longlaw. Yes, they lost some resources during those 300 years. Various things happened to them. But it held on to a lot of its own character, and a lot of the Imperial influence really wasn't seen in Hwanggot. And it's basically, people outside the nation would see that's kind of strange. But if you're familiar with the politics of Hwanggot, you know that changing the mind of the people there, the Tianhuan, is like plucking hairs out of a sleeping tiger's hide. It's very difficult. And they despise being lorded over by external powers, value their own sovereignty, so they see the conquest as a matter of pride that they managed to survive it. And they had the patience to endure being under Imperial Longlaw. And were able to keep a lot of their traditions alive because of that. They survived as a nation, while many others are a mess post the fall of Imperial Longlaw. So they survived that 600 years. Longlaw fell in 4606. Now, granted, some natural resources were plundered from it, of course, as Imperial Longlaw did. But, basically, it survived. Now, we do have to note there is some side information. There was a enchantress named Mistress Peony on Yojin Island who built massive lotuses of her own creation, the eastern coast of it, who went after Huao Jin. The Ruby Phoenix tried to entrap her. Huao Jin abducted her island into the tapestry. That's an important note, because we get to, there is an update in Hwanggot from this year. The year of this video coming out, 2024. Hey, 4724. The God's Reign. It just came out very recently as time of this recording. Mistress Peony and her island are back on Golarion. The God's Reign released it from the tapestry. And the Mistress is leading a movement to bring Hao Jin to justice for her crimes against TNZ. Such claims also include suggestions that Hao Jin is at least partially responsible for the murder of a god in God's Reign. And Hao Jin has occupied herself with finding war shards and exploring God's Reign pools. And the people of TNZ are accusing her instead of attempting selfishly to claim the power for herself. And this led to, local resistance, further spurred to the God's Reign ability to incite conflict. So, and in some places, including Hwanggot, the God's Reign transformed hilly countryside into colorful flowers of dusk gardens, where the flowers turn black during the day and glow colorful light at dusk. Each has a powerful magical effect based on its colors, and there's a tale of murdered newlywed husband being resurrected after being buried in a dusk garden. That's led to all authorities forbidding burial of the dead in gardens. So, this is stuff going on. This maybe not just Hwanggot, but with the return of a person in her island who are in Hwanggot territory, and of course, some of the stuff happening there, we can see the current things are getting a little less peaceful in a lot of ways, and may lead to larger conflicts. But the Hwanggot people, with their diplomacy first, are remaining strong to that in general. So that's kind of our little, I like the little update that I was able to grab. Let's talk about the nation itself, as we can see here. Just a note that this nation here, it's got forests, mountains. Of course, it is the eastern side of TNZ, kind of in the heart of the central. Its southern eastern reaches border the sea, including Naikang Bay. To the north, it has its border along the Xiandao River with Bakchuan. To the west, it borders the successor state of Po Li, and the Qianglo jungle occupies a lot of the southwest sections of the kingdom, and have a pretty good barrier against invading armies, the jungle there. So, yeah. It's a heavily forest region with some areas, and, meltwater from the mountains and just this kind of coastal region, which is the kind of deep within the nation itself that forms it. There are enclaves of Dokebi, Dukebutni, Spirits that Wander Freely, the elusive Taljie, a monster of legend that creates its nest in here. So it is a region that is rich in nature and probably, has dealt with invasions in the past too, that make it very difficult for anybody that wants to. Now there are 6 cities we know about. 3 that we know by name but we don't know a lot about. That's Cholak, which we know from Dragon Empire's Gazetteer is a metropolis. Hyecho, a large city, and Quindol, another metropolis. The cities that we know more about are its capital, Haesong, and 2 other cities. We'll talk about the capital in a second here, but Meicho, if Haesong is the metropolitan center of the nation, Meicho is a calmer, slow-paced destination for those who want to relax. In the mountains, it's got a lot of hot springs that are said to cure or ease ailments. People are kind and gentle, have quiet dedication to their work, puts others at ease, and because it's near the mountains, it's prone to having accidents involving malevolent ghosts, stray spirits, and strange creatures. Engong Man Bog, which is another major place. Basically, it's a place that if you're going to talk about Hwanggot, you have to talk about, because it's the largest Dokebi enclave in all of TNZ. Dokebi being the subgroup of goblins that exist here. So keep that in mind when we talk about it. It's in the middle of the Sacred Mountains, and it receives very few human guests. The Dokebi come to visit distant relatives. The houses are made of wood, soil, stone, roof with clay tiles and straw, crafted jars lay strewn about outside homes, buried in the plots of the ground, clustered inside homes. Vessels contain all kinds of fermented food, and much longer that be palatable to Tianhuans. And every year it hosts a grand festival where Dokebi crack open jars and engage in eating competitions. Capital, Haesong. It's located near the coast of the nation. It benefits from trade, and many of the people who walk the streets marveling at architecture, performances, and food. The noise is constant, seemingly only get louder and wilder later into the day. Always something to do. Drinking, countless inns, liquor halls, watching martial arts, craft, master artisans, craft poetry, metalworking, involvements of local politics where they're discussing it. There's a lot of investments in cultural funding here. It boasts one of the most diverse and interesting art scenes in all of TNZ, and the people here do respect and love their art very heavily. So we'll talk about that when we talk about the culture of this place. And being a part of trade, a passing adventure could always become a great place to get some materials there or get involved in transporting some goods. Now, let's talk about who's in charge here. And of course, this lady is the top tier, the queen herself, Young Gonji. So, the central government is matriarchal monarchy, supported by a government that's divided into offices and filled with members of a noble scholarly class known as the Yangba. The queen rules as long as she's willing, often till her death, but sometimes they leave it to a successor to retire, basically peace and comfort. If they've ruled for a long time and they're like, I'm getting old, I'm going to leave it to my successor. The previous queen, Queen Yang Yun, took about 60 years of rule, and her eldest daughter has currently ascended to the throne. Our good friend here, Yang Gonji. Her mother was more diplomatic in a lot of her policies, and it was essential for revitalizing Hwanggot after Long Wall fell. So her mother did a really good job in doing it. But our current queen is basically more interested in reigning in the feud between her nation and Bachwan, or at least reinforcing the borders. She's actually pushing to reinforce some of Hwanggot's past military might. She fears, perhaps in fear of potential conflict, or perhaps to invoke some kind of patriotism in her people. There's reasons behind it. Honestly, with the God's reign, we could see that military come back. Hwanggot has had military might. They use the, diplomacy and peace first, but it doesn't mean you're not ready for a fight with them, as I said. There are certain members of their people that are ready for a fight. So it's a powerful position. But the government offices under the crown are the real mechanism of country's governance. The courts of laws are drafted, guidance is given to the queen, diplomats are trained, and functions of the nation are performed. The offices are divided into 3 departments. The Chandrily, which advises the queen and guides her, the Central Secretariat, which charges the drafting of policies, and the Department of State Affairs, an executive body in charge of 6 smaller ministerial agencies: finances, personal rights, military, courts, and public works. These positions are filled with hundreds of Yagma, who usually serve a term, usually a couple of years, before moving on. Technically, any and all citizens are allowed to take the literacy exams necessary to fill these roles regardless of class. It is materially impractical, though, for those that already don't have the resources to study productively and join the class. So the class basically supports itself, even though anybody could theoretically join. The big cities, that's where the central government is, basically centered out. But the sway of the government is equally held in balance of power by the local governments and rural villages. They're community-led committees, which are instrumental in resisting the influence of Imperial Langwa. Basically, these small places outside the big cities are where a lot of the culture and resistance to Imperial Langwa's control remain. But, on the other hand, it's a headache for the aristocracy and the people in charge. And the threat of collective action bordering on rebellion keeps most ardent nobles from doing whatever they want in people's territory. It's doing with 2 different countries. So, yeah. Our queen, she has some kinship with the great generals of the past. She's a gifted archer. She wants to revitalize the military. And she's got a temper. So keep that in mind. Other important people that we can talk about are Yi Jinwu, who's leader of the Tianhuang people who live in the Changyao jungle. Talk about that. That's an important part. The people of the jungle are a little different. He's said to be the one that's closest to the Taiji, the legendary monster, a title he wears reluctantly. When the Taiji's presence is known, it's common for him to be made aware, and when the Taiji, Wakal Jie, begins to rampage, he departs the jungle depths and makes the trip to calm the creature with offerings of buckwheat jellies and the dance. Of course, for the Dokebi, Chanhe is one of the major individuals who talk about, who lives in Ngongman Bog. She's actually master of traditional methods of forming earthenware, and well known beyond her village for forming some of the most legendary blades in all of Hwanggot, capable of banishing wayward spirits and malevolent fiends with a single slash. So not only is she a master of earthenware, she's a master smith. She never goes far from home, rarely receives villagers, but in the past, warriors from all over Tianzi would seek out her work if they could provide the material. So, legendary master craftsperson, reclusive elder goblin. Another important figure is, of course, the master of the pottery. We'll talk about how important pottery is when we talk about the culture of people here, but I'm going to mention now pottery is very important too. And Garam is in charge of the distribution and logistics of the guild operations, deal with the KB enclaves, who are masters of the pottery, an important part of this entire exchange. They exchange techniques, prices, knowledge, great respected for it, and is currently looking to have someone, a disciple, replace them, but finding the right one. And there is an important merchant that's been set up shop there as the fifth of our figures that are important currently in politics in Hwanggot. And that's Tsukimi, comes from Ninkai. He's a merchant. I don't know as much about Tsukimi, but yeah. She's kind of moved into Haesong, ghostly white hair, that looks like it's never known a blade, tucks away in a corner, got a sense of incense around her, and yeah, might be into something a little shady, maybe not, but the interesting merchant that's set up shop. So these are our 5 figures who are the big people in the area. Let's talk about that culture, though, because we kind of mentioned the people in charge as some important groups, so we kind of have to talk about the people of Hwanggot in a lot of ways, and the culture that's there. Certainly, we can start with, non-violence, pacifists, peace as being an important part of it. But it also does come down to not having a grudge against the invaders and valuing beauty. Like, the nation attracted samurai of the Order of the Songbird, artists and poets. In pursuit of art is a very valued career. It's a very important one in this world. It's even more prestige than those who would serve in military. So yeah. Hwang is renowned for extorting unique foodstuffs, sweets, teas, exotic art, opium. It also is noted for exports in fireworks, particularly depicted in the Mugunghwa flower when detonated. Yes. Passionate and proud Tianhuan people who are the core of Hwanggot and its nation and its culture. If you spend time with them, they're boisterous, almost can be overbearing, meddling, chiding, to those that they share no relationship with, loyal, to those they consider part of the community. So local communities are very well put together. The national clothing is broadly known as a hanbok. It depends on where you are. For standing, commoners have cotton ones. Upper class folks would have silks with deeper colors, where the common ones would be simple, undyed cloth. Court officials would have their own unique style, and wear black horsehair hats known as got. So yes, when it comes to military, though, they are also not outside of having that strength there. Their defenses are big, They maintain their walls, they maintain their strength, but they do it a lot defensively. The great generals of old rest peacefully buried beneath fields of buckwheat flowers, knowing their people are at peace. And archery is a big thing, too. High-quality ore is scarce in Hyrule. So, if you have a very great sword or something, it's usually a decorated military official or somebody of important standing that would have that kind of things. And again, and remember I said that swords that were created to banish evil? Yeah, something like that. And so, the archery and its archery forms are the more dedicated style that they have, because of that lack of ore. That's why they The Hwanggot people also revere tigers, saying that once they were matched for dragons. Those who rule heavens know not the strength nor fury of those who stalk the earth. They're known for their foods such as kimchi, ongi. All these originated with the Dokebi in the Living Age. In the distant past, the Dokebi were more mischievous spirits, like giving to sleeping, crafting ogi on the side of the road, passing challenges to wrestling matches, building reclusive settlements that are difficult without being welcome. But time has kind of made them combine together. The foundations of the past and future are kind of naturally important. Patience comes to those who live out life like a fermenting jar and prepare foods for tomorrow. So yeah. Death is important to the people of their culture. It said when one dies, the memories are erased so as to remove all earthly attachments to allow the soul to be guided afterward. Yearly ceremonies known as ghost feasts are held in honor of one's passing relatives. Solemn rituals involve sharing food and sweets with the deceased. So, there are some important celebrations in the course of the year. Let's talk about some celebrations and the yearly traditions there. They've got the Huan New Year, which is a 3-day celebration. Many rituals take place. Important ancestral rites given, food. They have very cold winters. that locks down all the hardiest of crops, and their diets tend to be root vegetables, tubers, sweet beans, fermented foods. So yeah, and all the stuff they basically had preserved from autumn. Springtime is abundance. The snow melts away, fresh green herbs, plants that they can forage. Of course, creatures come out, monsters are drawn by the scent of new prey, and rivers or ocean alive with activity. There are also in the region, to note, Mugi, serpent-like creatures with a strong connection to period dragons that exert power over the weather. Autumn is an important season then. We can talk about the time of bounty, preparing for the coming winter. The string of holidays continue throughout the entire season for blessings of good harvest, harvest festivals, days dedicated to preparing food and clothing. And of course, our good friends, the Dokibi, the goblins of Hwanggot, are very active the most during autumn, where they have their festivals. Raucous celebrations that often coincide with the harvest in Tianhuan, that they can control fortune then. And again, because of these things, that's why Dokibi enclaves work and live very harmoniously with Tianhuan people nowadays. They share trade food, wealth freely. The earthen pots that the Dokibi create, called ongi, are prized for their craftsmanship and durability and the ability to ferment food in. And the Tianhuan have passed down some of these things through families through generations. So, I kind of have mentioned up till now how the Dokibi are very important to the Hwanggot. They really are. Their earthenware, their connections to the importance of some of their food groups, the fermented foods that they do now, all these things lead to why they are important. While they're an intricate part of the culture. Talk about the people. So, your average human is going to be the Tianhuan. Of course, it's the major ethnic group. We've been talking about them culturally, and the cultural that does connect directly. It's not to say that Tianhuan couldn't be outside Hwanggot, and there couldn't be other people of Tianian descent, perhaps in big cities and stuff, but yes. Their culture is rooted in gender roles, traditionally. But it's very different than other cultures. It's more common for women in the Hwanggot to serve as soldiers in general, rather than men. And men are really dominant in fields like farming, craftsmanship, and the arts. So, women also make up the variety of scholars. So, it is very different positioning when it comes to traditional gender roles within the nation and the Tianhuan people. Now, we do have to mention the people from the Changlo jungle. I mentioned their leader. But this group here are basically, if you're going to think about them as traditional, really traditional Tianhuan people. Old-timey Tianhuan people. They adhere to those warlike ancient versions of Tianhuan culture. The Sun Tzu Goden. They hate outsiders. They're renowned for their cruel tortures they inflict on non-Huan that they capture. And while the pacifists, the majority of people, would loathe their violent kin, they do harbor respect for them. Because it makes the jungle very dangerous, and no army would want to pass through it. Also, the Hueko Kitsune originate from that forest, too. And the group still has individuals scattered around the jungle. They also have a big dog, the Sapsili, which is almost exclusive. So, families are usually very extended. Grandparents will oftentimes kind of be in a household, and they'll watch over the children while parents go out to do their jobs. They'll make sure to prepare the food for them and the children in the morning. Basically, in most settlements, most days are quiet. Restaurants open for their lunches, there's chatting and gossip. In metropolitan areas, we talk about how big they are, but the small villages are simple. And there's a lot of jobs to do out there. There is usually lunch, which either a worker will bring a kind of lunch with them, or will go to a local restaurant where you can probably get a kind of hot lunch, something that would provide a lot more energy for your second half of your day. That's always what it is. It's a lot of energy-based foods for the second half of the day. And nighttime is when people come alive. Yes, while you think day would be the most hectic, nah. We come to night. That's where it becomes important. Vendors and stalls, hauling out chairs and tables, sense of sizzling meats, promise of cold liquor, the weariness of the hard day. Yup. And the people of Hwanggot, last thing to talk about that's important about them, have a proud history of alcohol making. An even prouder history of drinking. Distilled liquors, rice wines, fruit wines, even medicinal herb wines are favored. And in big cities like the capital of Haesong, the later magical interventions that assist drinking culture are very big. Enchanted barrels that keep liquor cold, animated pitchers that serve customers with wave of the hand, or cups that never spill. If you go to the rural places, most households will distill their own spirits. And those that do so well are popular places to gather once the sun sets. So maybe your house is the place that everybody comes and visits when the sun comes down to drink your spirit that you've distilled. You're the place to hang out. There's no bar in your small rural town. It's your place to hang out. You and the buds and the friends, everybody who's done from a day of work. It's also a popular belief that the loud noises and raucous celebrations ward off night spirits. So drinking and making merry late into the night hours is part of that entire nature of it. And the final 2 hours of night before the people begin to stir is the quiet, most peaceful hours. And that's when, those ghosts might actually appear deep in the night. That's Nation of Hwanggot. I really enjoyed diving into Hwanggot and learning about it. It's a very interesting nation. Nature? That's me not speaking English. It is a thing that I definitely can see some parallels to a culture that exists in our world. Not to say. We'll just say that. It's the continued thing that I've talked about with most of these videos. When we talk about a lot of nations. In Golarion, there are usually our world equivalents. It's sort of like, it's another parallel world in a way that's positioned and developed different to us with magic, but there are definitely origins and places and things that feel like it's culturally similar to us. It's another one. This is another one that definitely feels that way. But it's still an interesting nation because it has its own unique culture and development, as I also say. And certainly in this one, where they were very warlike people that basically fought blood and sweat to form their own nation. And at one point in time, one of their major leaders said, enough is enough. And basically managed to put things down to a place of peacefulness. I did forget to mention the religions, now that I'm thinking about it, when I said that, so I will just mention them now. They're the centers of worship of Haefang, Duke of Thunder, but also Desna, Tumfushi, Shellin, and Sung Wukong. Anyway, I mentioned religions that are importantly worshipped here. Sometimes I miss stuff in my own notes. But anyway, just to finish up quickly today, I hope you enjoyed learning about them and diving into them and seeing that's a really interesting place that there are probably a lot of adventures to have. It's a nation that has interesting tensions and interesting dynamics going on beneath the surface, where you certainly have a bunch of people that are very much more warlike traditional in their defense of jungle, but you have also people that are living up to that base of peace. But with the difficult world as it is now, even especially now with the God's Reign, the tensions are boiling, and maybe some of that militaristic past will kind of occur in the rest of it. But that deep nature of pacifism and peace still is there traditionally. So as much as people are angered, it's sort of like, where does the anger, violent, kind of bubbling beneath the surface meet with the tradition and beliefs of the people? And it's a very interesting dynamic, especially now, post the Gods. And I'm going to be interested to see if anything major develops, but something might not. Things could kind of piece down as the Gods Reign kind of continues and stuff like that. Major events may not happen here, but we can still see its effects in the future. I will leave that there. Remember to check out all of my stuff, whether it's over on Twitch or YouTube. My schedule goes up on my social media, which is my Discord, Blue Sky, /X. Discord tells you when I'm either going live on Twitch, and that kind of schedule. That's a little bit less exact. Or stuff over on YouTube. If I have problems with videos and stuff, then the YouTube show schedule changes, but otherwise, that's pretty easy. So, anyway, remember to check out any live plays I've done. I've done Pathfinder 1st Edition, I'm going to be doing 2nd Edition soon, done D&D, done others. Check out Discuss Tabletop on Saturdays. And I think that's all for my just basically shout-outs at the end. Alright, everybody, please, remember, do the things that I said at the beginning, like subscribe, ring the bell. And, what do you think of Hwanggot? Would you be inspired to make a character from there, a Teen Huan person? Or perhaps someone else that would be living in the nation? Remember, the Teen Huan are the majority of the humans there. They aren't the only one. People in the Imperial Long Wall, people that descended there, you could be someone in one of the major cities, especially there with a lot of trade places, of Hesa. Or perhaps if you would be inspired to make an invention that deals with Hwanggot. There's probably a lot of great ideas there. I certainly can see some opportunities for them. Well, let me know in the comments. Alright, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to hang out in Twitch chat, maybe do some more videos. Until the next time, I bid all of you out there a deep and wonderful farewell.